Okay, seismic waves within the inverted hollow Earth. Now there's a version by a man named Jan, whatever his name is, Lamprecht, where he gives his own version of the hollow Earth, how the seismic waves move. Actually, initially they proposed this model. Okay, you're looking at the Earth, you're standing on the Earth, which is convex, which they have it. It's not really convex. But anyway, there's a shadow zone at 105 degrees and 140 degrees that virtually no seismic activity occurs there. However, uh, there is still a little bit of activity that occurs there. Like if you look in this diagram of the solid convex Earth, they have a 105 to 140 degrees where there's no seismic activity. You got the black lines and the red lines. The black lines are the P waves, the red lines are the S waves. The S waves are secondary, black lines are primary. Secondary waves don't travel through liquids or gases. They only travel through solids. There's a version of, okay, you got the P waves and the S waves. Problem is, okay, basically going back a little bit, there's a man named Moho Rivichik, seismic discontinuity. Basically, in Croatia, early 1900s, he talked about 35 kilometers below, there was a rapid acceleration in velocity at that level when there was an earthquake here in Croatia, basically. So he concluded that the material has to be denser. It has to be denser than basalt rock, basically, because basalt rock, granite rock, has densities of 2.6 to 3.0. Okay, so metals have a higher density. So basically, seismic activity, seismic waves can travel faster through metals, especially obviously fastest through platinum or gold. So going back here, I wanted to talk about a little bit about this discontinuity. They call it the moho, or the mantle. Now he's saying there's actually a line that separates the crust from the mantle, but I'm saying the moho, if you want to call it that, is the actual mantle. Okay, this is my version. The inverted hollow Earth. Okay, right here, I'm going to zoom in over there. Right there is the epicenter. Let's say the epicenter of an earthquake happens right there. Okay, you got, this is the continental, the granite plate. This is the basalt, the oceanic plate. I'm saying beneath that is the moho, the mantle. That's made out of metal. And then there's another layer of water. This is just speculation, but I believe that this is kind of what I've concluded, basically. And then there's also a metal rind, and there's possibly even more layers of metal beneath that. I mean, this is the outside of the Earth. Okay, you're thinking we are living in the inside of the Earth. Okay, up in the middle is heaven. There's an octahedral core, where all the, and then you have inner space. You have the planets. You have the sun, the moon. Okay, so basically here, let me zoom out a little bit here. Okay, you have the epicenter of the earthquake, and the red line would be the secondary wave. The yellow line would be the primary wave. I'm saying that if there's an occurrence here, it's going to generate in both directions. Actually, I just have it going in one direction, but it's going to generate this seismic wave. The S waves and the P waves are going to be going through this solid metal very fast, very quickly. Okay, this is at the 105-degree shadow zone cutoff. So the red line abruptly stops because it's entering the liquid. Okay, there's a liquid here. This is what I'm saying. I'm not sure, I'm just speculating. And the P wave continues on into the liquid, but it's too weak to reach the surface. So you still get some seismic data within this shadow zone, but you don't get that much, basically. That's what I interpret. That's what they tell me, basically. So anyway, what's going on here, I believe, is that the P wave is continuing on into this liquid, and then it's beginning to reflect back, curve around back. So basically, at the surface here, okay, here's the ocean, here's the land. When you're detecting seismic activity below, obviously the signal is getting weaker because it's getting further down, but you're still detecting it. Okay, once it enters, once it exits the mantle, the moho, and enters the liquid state, you can barely hear any seismic activity whatsoever in this shadow zone. Especially, you cannot hear any S waves. But the P waves continue on, and the P waves reverse back, and then they hit the other side of the Earth. So that is actually a biblical model too as well, because if you look at Psalm 12, the words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Silver and earth and 7 times. It's very interesting because Cyrus Teed, now a lot of people think he's a whack job, but actually he was a very intelligent man. And looking back in retrospect, I think he was a little bit too, I don't know, he was just a little bit too static, too rigid in some of his terminology, but he had it right. He said, okay, the universe is an agar shell obtaining as a structure perpetually recreative and existent. It is limited by the environment of its shell circumferentially and by the astral nucleus centrally. Now, number 3, its circumference has 7 metallic layers of superimposed strata. Okay, 5 mineral strata. Okay, so he's basing this, I'm not sure if he's having divine revelation. He said he did actually, but I tend to believe, yeah, the Earth has a metal rind to it. Earth also rings like a bell. Okay, so basically, you have this metal rind. If I can even add the other layers too. If it does have these other layers here, basically you have these layers, and they're sandwiched between. I think Cyrus Teed actually said there was like a mercurial solution in between them, but you know, this is speculation. But this works. This works much better than the solid Earth hypothesis, as well as the convex hollow Earth hypothesis. Jan Lamprecht basically saying that initially, okay, this is your initial version of the seismic activity on a convex planet that happens to be hollow in theory, basically. But they have they only have the S&P waves going to about 80 degrees, and so this is where they would need to go. And so they have to revise their model to create this much smaller interior, this much smaller hollow interior. And they have to say, well, okay, then the S waves are gradually speeding up as you get deeper and deeper, as the material becomes more denser. And then it transitions, and then it starts to shift and become less dense, so it slows down. Now, this is all conjecture and theory. And it's just a ridiculous model, because if you understand anything about information being suppressed and true nature, I mean, watch my other videos. This is the true nature. We are living inside the concave edge of the Earth, which is stationary. Cyrus Teed performed a rectilinear experiment in 1897, and there's also the Tamarack Plumbob mineshaft experiments, which showed that the plumbobs actually diverged at the bottom of the mineshaft. So basically, one thing that Lampert does right is that he does attest that the shadow zone is not completely void of seismic activity, as a solid Earth would lead you to believe. And another thing about the solid Earth is they have to figure out why the P waves are reaching the other side of the Earth a lot later than they should. And so basically they're saying that that's why they create this, I guess you would call that the outer core. But they're saying that there's higher elasticity there. It's not necessarily lower density. It's just all theory and conjecture and bullshit. Okay? Just understand that there is a metal outer edge to the Earth. There's at least one metal outer edge to the Earth. The Bible confirms that, Cyrus Teed confirms that, and seismic activity confirms it. Okay, these seismic waves are moving very fast through this medium, especially when it hits the so-called MOHO layer, the mantle, 35 to 50 kilometers. So that's the true nature of the universe. We are living inside it. So if you guys don't agree with me, well, go fuck off. Have a great day too.